JMO Sharms described Richie as a shining light. I describe him more, and you alluded to it there, as like that kid that insists on shining the flashlight in your eyes, even after they've told him repeatedly to not do it.
Yeah.
Like that's the type of energy that he brings. But I think all of this, he's competitive, he's got edge, he can shut players down. I feel like it does him overwhelmingly a disservice because this is a guy who can be deployed as a center back in the central midfield, on either wing for, internationally or at club. He's got an incredible footballing IQ and an understanding of the game, right? So I feel like when we talk about Richie, of course, it's the edge and it's the energy and everything he imbues into the squad. But what do you see watching him at training, watching him regularly for TFC, that you can maybe tip your hat to, and just in terms of what he brings as a footballer beyond just the energy and the level of compete?
I think he's someone who I've been really impressed with in terms of, he has really sort of tight control in tight spaces, right? I mean, you look at it sort of when you look at him when he takes players on one-on-one, he's usually going at full speed. He's a very quick player. And I've always been impressed with the way that he can just sort of maintain sort of, control. And he's a very deft dribbler and, very technically skilled footballer in a lot of different ways. And so, yeah, he sort of marries that idea of like being a pest and being an agitator with someone who can sort of advance the ball and progress the ball in dangerous areas and sort of create sort of chances for, his teammates. I'd probably like to see a little bit more goal contributions out of him because, this year, I don't think he scored. If I correct anything, I think I'm correct. No, I definitely know he hasn't scored.
If you don't know, we don't know.
Yeah, no, he definitely hasn't scored. And I'm not sure he even has an assist this year. But again, that's probably more a product of him being played out of position for a great deal this year. So you'd like to see a little bit more offensive production out of him. But it doesn't change the fact that I think physically and, just tactically, he offers you a lot because he's such a, intelligent footballer.
Have you seen, JMO, have you seen any change in Richie's, attitude a little bit because of the team struggling in Toronto? Because he's seemed to have dealt with everything, whether they're winning, whether they're losing, whether they're in tough situations. Even the Nottingham Forest situation, I thought he handled that brilliantly well. Difficult situation for him. Have you seen any of that? Or is he just level-headed in every aspect of the game?
He's level-headed. I mean, I haven't seen sort of any drop in sort of mentality. It's the same Richie that I've known, since he first came to Toronto. And I think, again, that's probably something that, you have to tip your hat to. There's just a level of consistency there, both in terms of what he produces on the pitch and just his attitude. He doesn't sort of waver. He doesn't sort of let things, sort of bog him down and weigh him down. And I think that's sort of benefited Toronto this year in a lot of ways, because I think in past seasons, they were the type of team who were really mentally frail and would just sort of, throw up or just sort of close up shop, whenever they were down in a game and the game didn't sort of go according to their plan. I think that's different this year. There's a resolve to this team that is much more sort of pronounced than it has been in past seasons. And yes, the results haven't been there, but when you look at it, they've been competitive in every game. They haven't been blown out. There was one blowout, I don't even know if you can call it that, when they lost 4-2 to Orlando in the second week of the season. But, all the games that they've lost or drawn, I mean, they've been very tight games. There's been no sort of like, oh, wow, they were played completely off the park. They've showed a great deal of resolve and a great deal of just sort of steel and grit. And I think, that's in large part to players like Richie Laryea, who, doesn't let himself sort of drop down too low, even with everything that's the struggles that the team has had both on and off the pitch.
They're losing, but they're losing well.
Well, they're drawing now.
Does that count? If we had to define a blowout, what would a blowout be like as a scoreline?
Like 3-0, 4-0?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. 3-0, yeah.
I mean, there hasn't been there's been 2-0 losses, and there's been 1-0 losses and 2-1 losses, but there's been no 3-0s or 4-0s, right? There've been, as I said, it's a silver lining in what has been unquestionably a drab and terrible season. I'm not sort of sugarcoating it, but there has been improvement last year in that sense, in terms of, at least they're competitive, and at least there is that sort of stronger mentality this year that gives you hope that, they can build upon for next year.
What do you think they need, John?
Sorry, go ahead.
What do they need? Oh,
Yeah.
a striker, obviously. I mean, they've got, the second worst attack in MLS with 28 goals. I mean, when you look at it, Theo Corbiano is the leading scorer with 5 goals. DeAndre Kerr has 3 goals, and then no one else has more than 2 goals, right? I mean, so you're not going to win games like that. They're more defensively sound this year, but I could still think they could probably use another center back. But for me, the obvious sort of big hole in the roster is a striker, right? And that's something that Jason Hernandez, we talked to him earlier this week. He spoke quite clearly about, this offseason, we're going to go out and get like a DP striker. And it's someone who's, who has a proven track record of scoring double-digit goals, right, whether that's in MLS or Europe. So, and someone who's, knows what he's getting into Toronto, with them being the way they are, who is not afraid to take on that challenge, who's not afraid to sort of put in the work and to take on that responsibility that, he's going to be, key in helping to turn the club around. So, for me, that's just sort of the obvious glaring roster sort of vacancy that they have to fill.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at the MLS official standings. And if you go right to the end of the columns, past, goals for, against, differential, home form, away form, there is a column here for moral victories. And you do get a bonus point.
Moral victory.
And just to the right of that is grasping at straws.
Yeah, exactly. It's a fine line between them both.
That's where we sit in the Footy Prime podcast world. Right in between moral those victory. Two. Grasping at straws, moral victory. Great interview. All right.
Hey, J-Mo, so we haven't spoken to you for a while. It's been some summer in TFC land. I don't want to beat a dead horse here with the Insigne Bernardeski situation, but were you surprised that they were both bought out? We assumed Insigne was going to be bought out and would leave, but were you surprised that Bernardeski also left?
Yes and no. I think it became clear as the season progressed that it wasn't working, and that both of them really had to go because they were just becoming like too much of a drag on the sort of the salary cap situation and the roster situation. I was a bit surprised. I have to be honest. I was stunned in a sense that MLSE sort of agreed to pay these guys off, right? Because it's a pretty substantial outlay of money, right? That you're paying guys to essentially to leave, and I'm not sure that MLSE was sort of too keen to do that. Because it's essentially flushing money, millions of dollars down the drain. So, I give sort of Jason Hernandez credit for, he was able to sort of successfully negotiate, 2 of the more complex contract buyouts in ML history successfully at the same time. And I think it gives, the Reds a lot of flexibility. Obviously it opens up, the DP slots. One of them has since been filled by Georgi Mihailovic, but it opens up salary cap room. It opens up international spots. It gives the team a great deal of flexibility in terms of roster construction going forward. And when you look at all the other work that Jason Hernandez did during the offseason, sort of accumulating, I think it was close to $2 million in general allocation money. Combine that with the fact that I think there's like 15 or 16 guys on the roster by the end of the year who will either be out of contract at the end of their loans or in their option years of their contracts. The table's set now. He has a real chance to do a major overhaul in one fell swoop, in one sort of like off season. So, I say this every year, it seems like, for the past 5 years, but this off season is going to be one of the most important in the club's history because it's a chance for him to radically reshape the look of this franchise and, finally sort of put this sort of losing, skid, this, 5 playoff-less years finally behind them and move forward. So really important offseason for the Reds coming up.
I think Jason Hernandez should be given some credit here. He was sitting there for so long. People were asking, do something. Why don't you do anything? And he couldn't do anything.
Right. He
finally finds an out for those Italian players. And then he starts bringing in some proven commodities. You mentioned Mihailovic, Jose Cifuentes. What was that? That's weird. Did you hear that?
Yeah, you hit something and it did a reverb.
My hands are...
No, it was you, Sharms.
Okay, it was me. Okay. Jose Cifuentes comes in as well. Another proven commodity, albeit it's been a couple of years since he was in MLS. And he found another exit for Ola Brynhildsen, who I don't know how they're going to replace his presence at the club. That'll be difficult. But he seems to be really enjoying himself now that he's finally got his feet under his desk. This is Hernandez. And is actually operating the way a GM wants to operate.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was saddled with like a lot of sort of bad contracts, right? And I think he's just now starting to sort of climb out from under the rubble of like the previous regimes. And there's a little bit of daylight at the end of the tunnel. And now he's in a position where, he can sort of put his stamp on this team and start to build it the way he sees it. Again, it's great that he made all these moves, right? Bringing in Georgi Mihailovic, I think that's like an incredible signing because I'm a big sort of fan of his. I think he's like a wonderful, cultured footballer. And he's exactly the type of footballer that Toronto has needed for quite a long time. Not since Alejandro Pozuelo really left that they had a guy like that. I think Cifuentes is an interesting pickup. It's an upgrade on Debbie Flores, I would suggest, because he's more of a two-way player. And even Jules Anthony Vilsant, I think that's, I'm not sure what Montreal was thinking in sort of giving up him and all that general allocation money for an underperforming Matty Longstaff, but so be it. I mean, I think Vilsant is an exciting prospect. I know he had injury issues in Montreal, but I think he's someone who, if he can stay healthy, can potentially make a difference for TFC. All that being said, none of this is going to make a difference. None of like these guys that they've sort of brought in during the summer transfer window, all this general allocation money that they've sort of accumulated, none of it is going to make one jot of difference unless Jason Hernandez can make some serious moves this offseason, right? I mean, now he's firmly on the clock, right? He doesn't have necessarily the excuse of, these were all Bob Bradley guys and I'm just waiting out these contracts to sort of move out for them. The decks have pretty much been cleared for him to sort of put his stamp on this team. So now the onus is going to be on him. And I think the test for him is to put, a team together that can, contend and be a playoff sort of participant on a regular basis. He's not going to have those sort of excuses anymore. So I think he's firmly on the clock right now. And it'll be interesting to see how much time, MLSE and Keith Pelly in particular are going to give him now that, he's got this sort of clear sort of running distance in front of him.
JMO, sorry.
Go ahead.
There's been some rumors and some tea being spilled about Bernardeski. So I was wondering, did you hear about any of that? A couple of colleagues of his former teammates said there was no truth to this, but there seemed to be some resentment on the Bernardeski side, which we never even felt. Like we didn't hear about it until the back end. Is this sour grapes? Is this just, locker room chatter, or was there truth behind it?
It's a little bit of both, Dan. I mean, I don't think there's any question that he played a role in Bob Bradley's ouster, right? I mean, him and Bob did not get along, and him and the other Italians, they definitely sort of pushed for him, his exit. So that's undeniable. There's no sort of getting around that. But in terms of like after that, I've heard nothing but good things in terms of like what kind of teammate he was, the way he conducted himself. I'm sure there were times where he maybe had a bit of an attitude, but it never sort of played out on the pitch in any significant way. And you talk to sort of his teammates even now, and they'll have nothing but good things to say. So I think it's, like I said, it's a little bit of both. I think more of sort of I think it more played out when Bradley was there, right? Because he just did not enjoy playing under Bob Bradley, and he was not shy about letting people know. So I think that, whatever sort of happened in terms of his attitude or behind the scenes stuff, it was more of a product of when Bob Bradley was there.
You know how teams have those mission statements often emblazoned on the wall of the locker room,
Yes.
Is it true that TFC have one that just says, "Do it for Sean"? Sean Johnson has been brilliant, quite honestly, since he came to TFC. His record's appalling, and it has nothing to do with him as a goalkeeper. Is this contract up after this year, or is it one more year left?
He's out of, his contract is up, but the club has a contract option for next year. Okay. So I wonder think that they're going to sort of pick up his option, and then he'll be out of contract completely at the end of 2026.
Without him, I mean, where would this team's record be the last couple of years?
Oh, they'd be bottom of the table. I mean, he's been. I would suggest the team's MVP this year. I think he's been absolutely brilliant. This has probably been his best season for TFC, which is interesting because when you think about all the injuries that they've had on the defensive side of things, he hasn't been playing in front of like a steady back three or a steady back four. And probably Craig can sort of speak to this better than I can, but, playing in front of like the same sort of defensive unit on a consistent basis, I would think that makes it a little bit easier on goalkeepers because you know what to deal with. They know how the guys are going to be set up in front of them. But he's had to sort of, deal with different sort of defensive units in front of him, and so it hasn't been an easy time of it. And yet he's made big saves. I mean, he's made critical stops in key junctures of the games, and really without him, I think TFC would be far worse. I mean, they've got 5 wins. Maybe they get 2. Without him. I mean, he's been sort of that good, and I think he's been clearly TFC's stand-up player of 2025. I mean, I know that's a low bar, but I think he's been pretty good this year.
Yeah, I always said that, from goalkeeper's point of view, it's so different than the out players that results are actually irrelevant to yourself. Like what you have to do, because if they're winning games 3-2 and you're throwing 2 in a game, you're not going to be in the team very long.
Right. So
the result is irrelevant to the goalkeeper. I mean, you just got to do your job, regardless about what's going on around you, whether the team is doing well or not. And you can lose 2-1 and stand on your head. It's better than winning 3-2 and throwing 2 in from a personal standpoint,
So selfish. It's so true, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's the one
get
position,
another contract.
Probably in sport, right? It's the one position in sport where you are really out on an island by yourself. I can't think of another one really, because quarterbacks are on an island to a certain point, but they have to get results.
Yeah, true.
Right, but that would be maybe the only comparable. I can't think of another sport. Pitcher in baseball, obviously. If you lose 1-0, right, and you're a pitcher and you go 7 innings, you've been great. To hell with the result. I suppose that's the one comparison, isn't it?
Yeah,
and they're weird. They're weird people as well, apparently.
Maybe
I think there's a guy in Milwaukee, actually, a pitcher that's unbelievably lights out, and I think he's 9-7 or something, 10-7.
Right.
But Craig, didn't you win MVP of Ipswich Town one year?
Yeah, in the relegation year.
Yeah, and so your team was shite, and you were the shining
we got
light.
9-0 that year.
Yeah, so Sean Johnston and you have a lot in common this year.
So that year, Craig,
you see that a lot when teams are at the bottom. If a goalkeeper is going to get Player of the Year, it's not going to be the team that wins the championship.
That year, Craig, did you have your own end of season party by yourself? No one else was there, invited. You got it catered. All your favorite food.
Yeah, just all by myself.
Yeah, Smoke jokes up in the third person. Hey, Craig, great season.
Yeah, great award presentation. He's hosting it. He's accepting the award.
It's just Craig in the shower.
Hello, Craig.
There is a thought.
I was gonna compare it though. Like you're asking, is there any other position or like in sport that's like the goalkeeper? I would say in football, the striker isn't unlike that. It's on a completely different scale, but as a striker, you're still paid to put the ball in the net, regardless of the results and regardless of where your team is in the table. And JMO, because I'm not as well versed in TFC's history as you or really anybody else on this panel, I went back and 2019 was the last time. I think you mentioned Pozuelo, but it was 2019 where he scored 12 and Altidore had 11. So you had 2 double-digit guys there. But between then and now, there has not been a double-digit score.
No.
So you're mentioning Georgi Mihailovic. Like I think about Georgie when he was with Montreal and how he worked with an archetypal 9 like a Romel Kyoto, who that year I think he had 15 goals and 6 assists. But a lot of that attack was orchestrated by a Georgi Mihailovic. So when you're Jason Hernandez and you're going out to look for a guy who's going to give you those goal contributions, what other qualities are you looking for, do you think, that are going to pair well with the Georgi Mihailovic who's pulling the strings?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Sorry, I forgot your name, Amy.
It's Amy Dubs JMO. Just right there.
I apologize. Sorry.
It's okay.
It's an interesting question, and it's one that we sort of talked. Again, we talked with Jason Hernandez earlier this week because he said, obviously he talked about wanting to fill that sort of striker position with a DP. And we said, well, what are some of the profiles that, you wanted in the striker? And he said, well, we thought, going with Prince Owusu before last year, we wanted sort of that sort of physical target man up front, and that didn't necessarily work out. This year they went with Ola Brynhildsen, someone who can, he described as a runner, right? Someone who can play off the shoulder of like the last sort of defender and get in behind defenses. And that clearly didn't work out. My sense is that he's going to go for something a little bit hybrid in that sense, right? Someone who can sort of provide a little bit of both. And I think, again, you bring up Georgie, and I think that's sort of the key here, right? I mean, I think they're going to have to find someone who can sort of link up effectively with Georgie, because he's someone who, Jason Hernandez described as the centerpiece, right? He's sort of the foundational piece for this franchise going forward, who I think 27, 28, don't quote me there, but still with plenty of years left to give. And I think they see him as sort of the foundational piece. So whoever is going to sort of be brought in after that is going to have to complement Georgie. And so getting a striker who can be on that same wavelength of Georgie Mihailovic, I think is going to be critically important. I think that's going to be, one of the major things that Jason Hernandez is going to be looking for this offseason.
Well, I was reading a guy named John Molinaro on tfcrepublic.ca, and he described Georgie Mihailovic as the creative fulcrum.
There you go.
That's a beautiful turn of phrase, JMO.
Yes. It's a great word, fulcrum, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I love that word.
Yeah. Big time Charlie-ish.
A little bit.
Physics, a good old physics term.
Is it really though? I mean,
no, it's not.
I'll try and dumb it down for you people.
Can you please? As I look up.
Footy Prime tab, layman's terms.
Yeah, exactly.
Please dumb this down. Footy Prime, please.
JMO, tell us about tfcrepublic.ca. There was is the deal still on? Have I just missed that?
The Labor Day special is over. It was a 3-day special, so.
Okay,
but no, I mean, we've got. I know there's 6 games left in the season, so we'll have full sort of coverage of that. I'm going to be in Columbus for the game against the Crew on September 20th. So that we'll have full in-depth, report of that game. But really, it's about the off season now, right? I mean, so we're going to have sort of in-depth analysis right up until Christmas. I'm not shutting it down. So we'll have in-depth coverage of the club during the off season every single day, right up until the holidays. So it's and it's a cheap buy. It's only $50 a year, $8 a month. So subscribe, people. Do it.
Well, the other thing is, JMO, I know you chose Columbus because it was the cheapest flight in North America.
You know what? No, it's because I haven't been to that new stadium and sort of I've heard great things about it, so I want to check that out. But no, I think this is going to be like my 8th or 9th trip this year, because I've done Nashville, Charlotte, Philadelphia, DC, Cincinnati. So it'll be nice to get back to Columbus.
Yep, JMO will be wearing his MAGA hat. For sure.
Oh God,
he loves his US trips.
Do you see his face?
I know, this disgust. We obviously love the States, and that's all I'm saying. No, I'm just joking. Obviously, JMO's not part of MAGA.
Not at all.
As far as I know, anyway. I don't think he is.
No.
JMO, thanks, mate.
Great
job as always. And yeah, please subscribe. It's so cheap. And this winter is going to be so exciting in TFC life. And I don't know what JMO will do when he's got to cover a good team. I don't know. Be the first time.
Yeah, what it's like. I mean,
yeah,
I really,
not once, right?
Sorry.
Not once since the website was launched.
No, I think so I came back in 2021, and since then that's when the playoff streak sort of started. So I'm clearly the problem here.
The jinx.
The jinx, exactly. JMO, thanks, pal.
Sure, no problem.